So this latest episode of Otome game, we have one episode to go, and honestly, a lot happened for also sort of being a recap all in the process. I saw some people be a little mixed on this episode, really enjoying the second half, thinking the first half was a little pointless because we know how these characters feel, we know how much they care about our lead character Katarina, but at the same time, there's another side which more or less I fall into. For the most part, I slightly understand where some people are coming from with some of the intro content because it does go on for quite a while. Things like 12 minutes before she does wake up, or at least it starts transitioning into some of the newer content. But there's a lot of us who kind of feel like it was a good way, because this is the second to last episode, reassure everyone like just how much they care about our main girl, while also showing a side of them we haven't seen before because, well, she's never been in a situation where it looked like she was going to die or never wake up, which then would cause her to die. I really understand both sides, and I definitely felt more onto the side of enjoying this episode pretty much across the board, but I can see where some people are coming from saying like, okay, the first few characters kind of being like, I'm sad she's not waking up. I honestly, it's like, yeah, that's really nice, but as you get going and you're going through every single cast member, it does feel a little, it's the same stuff. But of course it is, because she's more or less gone into the hearts of everyone pretty much equally, and for them that's actually kind of the worst thing ever because she's only engaged to one person, and even then she's not even romantically all that interested besides just saving her life and protecting the people that she holds dear. So it was nice to see how much she really has touched each and every one of them, and how her just being knocked out in a coma, it really did shatter the world for all these characters. One thing I've said across my reviews is that pretty much all the doom that has popped up has more or less been avoided because she conquered all of the routes, besides obviously the serious route, because we didn't really know if that was a route up until that point. So there never really felt like there was a threat or danger, and even though we knew this wasn't going to last, because unless this was the last episode, there really was no chance that she would stay in that coma for the entire episode. But in doing so, what they ended up doing was they did something that, even though it wasn't maybe as shocking as seeing, oh, she collapsed, we don't know if she's living, instead we get to see all these characters not be held down by Katarina's like bubbly persona, but rather she's pretty much lifeless and dead before their eyes, and we get to see them be weak and afraid. We get to see them crying, we get to see them reflecting on the past, which is where the sort of recap comes in, showing how they met, but then in doing so, also showing how far they've come thanks to her guidance. And it was really sweet to see all that content. Honestly, just think about all the characters. We get to see a very strong-willed prince who never break down when he's alone. We get to see a brother who's been very strong-willed. He's had kind of a funny persona. He's always there, making sure his sister isn't getting too close to any boys, even if she's engaged to one. And then we get to see him go back to something that feels very reminiscent to how we first met him, basically huddled up in his room, alone and afraid. We get to see all the characters more or less revert back to how they were before they met Katarina, and to see them basically feel like a husk of their former self, it was a great way to serve as a recap, but also show something new on the process. And my only complaint with that entire thing is you probably could have skimmed it maybe like 3 minutes out of the 12-ish that we got, with them all sad, because this is a pretty big cast of characters. Once you get past like the third or fourth one, you're like, okay, I like you, don't get me wrong, but we are pretty much seeing the same thing. It would have been maybe nice to maybe conjoin a couple of them or something like that, but besides that, it's a pretty minor thing for me. I know for some people it's a big bother. For me, I like the episode across the board. It's just like around the 9-minute mark of this episode, I was really hoping to see something a little more new rather than a flashback and seeing another character sad, but I still am happy they gave us this, because for it being the second to last episode and seeing how the episode ends, it feels like a good way to give you that emotional high to then end off on something that's going to be a little more adrenaline pumping, but also most likely bringing another person into the Otome game harem, because it doesn't seem like he's all that bad of a guy. It looks like he was kidnapped, watched his mother die, and then revenge and dark evil magic came swooping in, and it'll be interesting to see what's going to happen there, especially considering that before the whole dream sequence in the classroom ended, she learned the true name of Sirius. So there definitely is a lot going on here, and I think it'll be an interesting way to wrap it up. I mean, I don't think many of us expected Sirius was the type of person to stab someone in the heart to get this evil magic. It was most likely going to be surrounded by someone who died, and that probably allowed kind of like some Fullmetal Alchemist style or something like that. So it'll be really fun to see what they're going to do and just the way they're going to take it, because the character that we saw last week compared to the character we saw this week is very much two different people, and one very much afraid and alone, especially considering just some of the things we saw with that flashback in the little like less than a minute that we got with Sirius in this episode. But honestly, I like this episode. It really was something that I think really fits the episode 11 mark quite well. You get a lot of sappiness, we get a lot of emotionalness, and I mean, for some people, maybe they'll say, okay, like, we know how much they care about our girl, of course they're gonna be sad if she's not waking up, but because she couldn't talk to them, because she was literally lifeless, it gave them a sense of personality we haven't really seen up until this point, because she is someone who holds the show together. She is someone who is always talking. Even if we think she's clueless or dense at multiple moments, she always has a spotlight. Even when someone else is talking, you always look to her because you don't know, are we going inside her mind to see those little minions get working? Is she going to say something oblivious? Is she going to say something intelligent? We don't know, so we're always focusing on her even when we're focusing on someone like Keith or another character. So it was nice to just have them hold the spotlight and almost go back to how we first met them, and also see sides of them that we never thought we would when we initially did meet these characters, thinking that they're going to be dense or just very egotistical or just someone who wants to go shopping all the time, right? Instead, we get to see them as a person who's actually scared and afraid, and that's why a simple scene of them all barging in, being like, we're gonna stay with her and talk with her until she wakes up. You can say it's cliche, you can say it's sappy, but at the end of the day, that kind of feels like what would happen with a group of friends and family who have grown a really strong bond over the years. So it honestly lended itself to be very interesting, my honest opinion, even if it did go on a few minutes longer than I would have liked. In terms of the whole Sophia being confirmed as the old friend, I mean, we all saw that coming, but I thought it was the perfect way to confirm it in the episode, especially considering the game that they used to play is now the game they got isekai'd into, so almost like having this weird dream, I don't know what you want to call it, dimension kind of crossing where we're in this in-between world. It kind of makes sense without needing a technical explanation, because if you're saying you can get isekai'd into a video game and that's actually going to be a real world for you, it's not crazy for me to kind of have like the original person, almost like being the overlord player, kind of talking to you off and on, and then having this almost really beautiful but very trippy dream sequence where you have our character just trying so hard to be her old self, and then we have Sophia and her original self kind of guiding her and teaching her without kind of spoiling everything besides like the main name, so you didn't get the answer of like why he was doing this. It's probably just because he wanted to be a part of the harem and she didn't let him in, thinking, oh, that's just a side character, forgetting that's actually the main character that you need to worry about. So it's nice having that moment because they went all out both with the musical directing, the music just really kind of like heightened everything around that when they're talking, and she's kind of snapping too, and we're seeing the transitions and the glitches between basically the old friend and then glitching into the new character. You're like, oh my god, that's just such a visual trip and I love it. And then seeing just shattering. It was so cool. I love it anytime like when you're in like a reality shattering and you see everything kind of like rip apart cube style. The last thing I remember watching anime wise was ID Invaded, where you get all the just shattering of the buildings and it's all cubes and they're piecing together. It's great when a reality is shattering and you get something that really feels like, okay, it's not just like it's glitching or it's just like fading away. It actually feels like something shattering, and it makes the dramatic goodbye all the more powerful. And I thought they did a great job. One of my favorite scenes I've seen in this anime to date is that simple touch where they're going to reach out for the hands and they just slightly touch and then it fades away. It is beautiful, it's emotional, and even though you know these two characters are going to see each other in their new forms, it still felt like something was saying goodbye, as if that was something that's gone and forgotten, or maybe they will remember and they'll get to have a conversation. Nonetheless, it was very emotional despite knowing they were going to see each other again in a new way. I think what I like about Otome game is it didn't honestly rely on the same thing throughout all the episodes. For a long time, it was basically her scared she was going to face doom despite avoiding all the doom that she knew possible while creeping up with that serious doom flag all along. And then of course we got something a little different where we got that kind of dramatic, and now we're going into the final confrontation where it doesn't feel as dramatic as maybe I thought it was going to with last week, but at the same time, to me it doesn't feel rushed. I did see some people say it felt like the pacing was pretty fast and as if we were just going through things non-stop, and at some points I could kind of see, because you're like, oh, here's the doom flag, here's obviously it's not as doomful as we thought, is someone who's probably tortured himself, probably going to save him next episode, or maybe they'll throw a complete curveball. But even if they do save him next episode, to me it doesn't even seem all that rushed, because comparing how she kind of conquered the other characters, it's pretty much in line with everyone, even though they weren't the main enemy, but at the same time they kind of were, because depending on how you play the game, they could be an enemy that kills you or exiles you. So It doesn't feel any different than the intro. The only difference is now that we're reaching the end of the anime with one episode to go, you kind of think, oh, it's going to be this very long and very intense thing, but at the same time, comparing how she's dealt with everything up to this point, as long as she has that guiding hand, which she got in this episode, I don't see why she couldn't deal with it next episode unless they throw us a curveball, which is always a possibility. Overall, I thought they did a great job with this episode, even if it went on slightly longer than maybe we wanted for the first half, with where they go, showing us a side of the characters we haven't got to see because Katarina was never knocked out to this length until now, to just the realization of everything that's happening. I thought this was a fantastic episode and one that got me incredibly excited for the finale, which is a sad thing to say, but honestly, depending on how they handle episode 12, it could be a very good stopping point for the anime should it never get a second season. But as always, let me know your thoughts and opinions, be it for fans of the source material or anime originals like myself, down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like to show your support, and remember to hit that subscribe button if you happen to be new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.